Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to this webinar, Assessing the Role of Asia-Pacific in Developing Global SAF Corridors, with our panelists analysing infrastructure capabilities, global learnings, and collaboration across the industry. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Harry, the Content Director for SAF Asia-Pacific Congress. Sustainable Aviation Futures hosts a global series of high-level SAF and aviation decarbonisation conferences, bringing together the entire value chain to connect, discuss, and analyze the capabilities for scaling innovative energy solutions and powering a thriving aviation industry. Over the next 60 minutes, our panel of experts will discuss the potential impact of regional disparity in policy, what is driving SAF investment in Asia Pacific, and which solutions present the best opportunity for scalability in the region. This webinar will provide a snapshot into some of the speakers and sessions taking place at our Asia Pacific event in Singapore from the 24th to the 26th of November. With over 100 speakers confirmed in the APAC region, today we'll provide a preview of some of the important discussions taking place in the industry. The three-day event features over 400 senior leaders, including over 10 government organizations and industry experts from across the aviation and energy value chain to discuss SAF projects and exciting opportunities in the region, the path to meeting the industry's ambitious targets, and the global SAF landscape and innovative energy technologies. Next week is our early bird for the event, providing the cheapest way to join the 250 attendees already confirmed. For more information as to how you can attend the event, please reach out to Nick, whose details can be seen on screen. For those of you who haven't attended one of our webinars before, please do use the question section at the bottom of the screen to keep your questions coming in throughout the hour, and our panel will do their best to answer your questions at the end in our Q&A session. This session is also being recorded and will be distributed to you once the webinar finishes. With that, I'm pleased to hand over to our moderator today, Arnaud Brolly. Thank you.
All right, thanks Harry, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone joining us today. Very warm welcome to our webinar, Asia Pacific Role in the Development of the Global SAF Trade Corridors. So my name is Arnaud Brolly. I'm the founder and CEO of EC Impact based in Singapore, and I'm truly delighted to be your moderator for this important conversation. So today we will bring together a distinguished panel of experts, and we'll together explore about how Asia Pacific regions can not only participate in but lead transformation of global aviation through sustainable aviation fuel, of course, but also through the creation of cross-border trade corridors that connect production, certification, and demand. So we all know that SAF is not just technical innovation, it's economic, geopolitical, and environmental solution. So as airlines, fuel producers, and government commit increasingly to ambitious targets, so the conversation is shifting rapidly from if to how. How we can scale up the supply, how we can ensure the traceability, and how do we build transparent and interoperable SAF markets that function seamlessly across regions. So our panel will explore how APAC is poised to play central roles in shaping the world emerging sustainable aviation fuel trade corridor. So thanks again to everyone joining us today, and let's get started. And I'm very thrilled to introduce you our panelists. And so started by Takehiro Kawahara. So Takehiro joined Bloomberg NEF in December 2012 and has since covered a range of topics, including Japan's renewable energy sector, distributed energy solution in Africa. And in April 21, so Takehiro joined the commercial transport team, where he specialized in aviation decarbonization. So thank you, Takehiro. We have Ishan Gulati. Ishan is part of a sustainable project sales division at JGC Corporation. And JGC is one of the world's leading plant engineering companies specializing in LNG, refineries, and petrochemical projects. And Ishan, for the past few years, has been a member of the planning and promotion team, mostly focusing on identifying potential geographies or new project opportunities. So thank you, Ishan. Mitch Shannon. So Mitch, you are a director of Pollination Advisory Business, so based in Australia. And for those who are not aware, so Pollination is a global advisory and investment firm that works with clients, and the goal is to accelerate transition to a net zero and nature positive future. So Mitch, you are an energy transition expert with deep experience in advising government and corporate on policy, design, and decarbonization strategy. And we are all really eager to hear from you on the panel today. Last but not least, Dr. Sheng-Chuan Ma, or David Ma. And you, David, you are independent energy transition and climate change consultants. You're based in Beijing. Focus on carbon capture, low carbon aviation technologies, and sustainable energy policies. And David, you were to mention that you previously held roles at the Global CCS Institute, Energy Foundation China, Future Call, and Civil Aviation Administration of China. So thanks, David, for joining. So let's get started by framing the landscape. And just, to break the ice, as you know, SAF production and demand are accelerating worldwide. Despite this global momentum, trade corridor remain fragmented. So my question would be to all of you. So to your perspective, what's holding Asia Pacific back, and what gaps still prevent our region from fully integrated into SAF global flows? Maybe Takehiro, if you want to get started on this one.
Yeah, sure. I think the globally the demand for SAF is slowly increasing, but demand is really concentrated in particular regions, which are the North America and Europe, where policies are in place. On the other hand, in the APEC region, yes, there are interests growing, but there's only one country that has confirmed to implement the policies for SAF, which is Singapore, which will introduce SAF levy from next year. There are other governments, Indonesia, South Korea. These countries are also planning to implement SAF mandate for international flights from 2027. But then we haven't seen the very clear policy packages, how SAF are financially supported. So there's a lack of policies in the region. So that's, I think, the one reason why there is a fragmented SAF corridors in the region at the moment. I think you are on mute.
Yeah. Am I on mute? Oh.
No,
no. Okay. Sorry, I don't know what happened. So thank you, Takehiro. And okay, you're right. So Singapore, meaning being one of the most obvious, I would say, commitment for 2026 on the levy. But Ishan, what's your perspective on this question about what's holding Asia Pacific back?
Well, thank you very much. I agree with the Takahiro. And the first one is the uneven policies. Without the predictable demand, especially for the domestic blending, and the clear taxes, the SAF capacity cannot be scaled up. So to become the Asia Pacific, to become the export-oriented hub, a clear and the stable policies are required. Secondly, as we all know that Asia Pacific region has the abundant of the resources as a feedstocks. However, those are dispersed in nature, right? Which means those belongs to the very small landholders, and these are numerous in number. So which directly relate to the logistics and the traceability challenges. So for the Asia Pacific to become the SAF hub, the traceability mechanism needs to be strengthened. And moreover, the projects that are being planned in this region are stranded away from the refineries or from the airports. So it means there's a lot of the challenge for the transportation, which adds the complexity and the cost to the projects. However, the trade corridor requires the efficient efficient movement of the SAF. So I believe these are some of the gaps. If addressed, Asia Pacific will stand out first in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ishan, for your perspective. What about you, Mitch? What do you think? Do you agree about what Takehiro and Ishan has mentioned, or do you have any other comments on this?
Yeah, thank you, Arno, and definitely agree with those earlier comments in general. I think the sort of levers that I would expect a region to be implementing in order to be successful as a SAF hub would be policy predictability and certainty, which is obviously quite fragmented across the region, and also having the market architecture in place to enable SAF trade and flows both domestically and across borders. So that goes to the point around registries and accounting and certification schemes ideally being harmonized across the region. And then the physical infrastructure as well. It's obviously critical to enable the industry to scale, and shared blending and storage and logistics infrastructure is still under development in a lot of areas. So those are some of the elements that I think need to be addressed for Asia to realize its potential. One of the other things I would point out is maybe a little more political in dimension, in that, from my perspective, I think a lot of governments globally, not just in Asia, are kind of viewing the SAF opportunity through a let's maximize the domestic economic benefit of this industry and build the market for our economic benefit essentially, and that's understandable. But given that it is such an interconnected global market, I'd like to see, I suppose, some more collaboration between governments in APAC to unlock some of these cross-border trade corridors and work together on things like that, the market architecture and the accounting regimes, and how those can be aligned to enable industry in both countries or multiple countries to benefit from this opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Mitch. No, absolutely valid. And allow me to give the floor now to Dr. Shengshan or David. So what's your take on this these comments, and what's your perspective on this?
Okay, thank you, Arnold. I think it's a good question. I totally agree. The old distinguished the speakers they're saying. For my understanding, I think that the police because Asia has advantage in the resource diversity. So I think that's the policy coordination that's important. In other words, that's we for example, the China, Japan, Korea, Singapore, that has a large Ireland market and has large productions, sub production, and other just East Asia countries, they have a lot of another sub feedstocks. So I think that we need structural thinking to how to push forward the sub production, and most important to reduce the high cost of the SAF. That also needs our collaboration and coordination.
All right, thank you. So indeed, quite a few topics we still is holding Asia Pacific back. But now, if we look at the strengths that we have in APAC, and if we can now turn into the opportunity side. So, I mean, as I say, so APAC has a unique mix of geography, diverse feedstock, rising domestic demand. So I think the question is, how do we align this advantage to make APAC a true hub for SAF production and trade? And allow me to ask Ishan a question to you. So from your point in engineering, project delivery as EPC, so what's regional feedstock conversion project or technologies that do you see the most promising for scalable and SAF export, for example? Or what's your take on it?
Thank you very much. So as we all know that Asia Pacific is not only the feedstock resourceful, but also it has the extensive refining capacity. So undoubtedly, HEFA pathway stand out as the most effective and the viable pathway for the SAF production. And this comes together with the co-processing. Because of the shared infrastructure, the CapEx can be drastically lowered. So in JDC, we are the first mover in Japan for the SAF production from the 100% UCO, together with the Cosmo Island Revo International. So we have shown to the world that this technology readiness level already exists, and we are happy to share our knowledge with the other developers in the world. And the second one comes down the line after the HEFA is alcohol to jet. Asia Pacific region, the countries like India, China, Thailand, and Philippines, they have demonstrated the ethanol capacity in this region. And not only for the 1G, but now these countries are trying for the 2G feedstocks. So as we are talking about the feedstock, we as an engineering company always looking to do the feasibility study kind of the work for the ethanol production from the various different feedstocks, basically 2G feedstocks, to increase the SAF capacity in the market. Recently, we did one of the study in Indonesia for the empty fruit bunches for the ethanol production, which could eventually make the SAF in the future. So that's how we are trying to support the SAF market. Then coming to the gasification side, we don't see the much movement in the past, but now we are seeing the little traction coming up in the gasification sector. But it has a challenges on the gasification technology. Probably it's because of the TRL levels are between 7 to 8. It's not fully proven. So as an engineering company, we are always partnering with the technology licensors so that their innovation can come to the real world or operation. So this is my take on the technology perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Hisham. And maybe as a side note, I see that there is some new coming gasification technology in the Philippines. Not sure how mature it is, but it seems that it's a market which is as well growing over there. But moving
Yes.
on, and thank you, Hisham. Yeah. So, and Takehiro, if I may ask you the question, because looking across APAC markets, to your perspective, so what do you think, or which routes or countries do you believe show the strongest potential for early SAF trade corridors to emerge?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So it's still very early stage, to be honest, but then looking at the technology development, the feedstock potential, and then policies are under discussion, I think I would raise one or two examples of that could be a promising trade corridors in Asia Pacific region. I think the one is between Southeast Asia and then Northeast Asia. I think many people already mentioned that, but for example, the Singapore or Malaysia and Japan and South Korea. The reason is, for example, if you look at the SAF production capacity in different countries, so as I earlier mentioned, Singapore will implement SAF levy from next year. And then first target is 1% in 2026. And then the government is planning to raise that to 3 to 5% in 2030. But then Neste's, the Singapore's Neste's refinery capacity. So the nameplate capacity is about 465 gallons, 5 million gallons per year. And then of which about 300 million gallons could be SAF, according to our calculation. But then this is enough supply capacity, assuming that there is enough feedstock for this. This is enough supply capacity to meet the 5% target of Singapore in 2030. But then there could be other countries that would still need to import SAF, at least feedstock. In Asia Pacific region. For example, the reason why I raised Japan is that, the government is still discussing how to support SAF, but there is a non-binding target, which is 10% SAF to be used in Japan by 2030. But then by looking at the current SAF projects in Japan, there's one project has just started production in Osaka area this year. And then there are other 6 projects to be under planning to be operational before 2030, which is hydroprocessing or alcohol to jet. But it's unlikely that the current, the total capacity of the SAF from these projects would be enough to meet the 10% target in 2030. So if Japan really wants to meet the target, it needs to import from other countries, at least in the short term. And then South Korea side. So South Korea is planning to implement 1% for international flights from 2027. But then the government, according to the government roadmap, they are thinking to raise the target gradually. But then looking at the current planned projects in South Korea, And also they would face the feedstock supply challenge as well. So South Korea would need to import some stuff from other countries as well. Yeah. I think finally maybe another corridor could be between Australia and other demand centers. So Australia also has more than 10 projects at least. And then a few are already under construction. There are other projects, especially focusing on alcohol-to-jet, under planning. So this could be another supply country.
Maybe I could
Brilliant.
maybe I
Yeah,
could
please.
just add to that,
Of course.
Takahiro, and I think I was going to provide a bit of the Australian perspective as well, because we've obviously got a huge landmass, lots of feedstocks across different types, and at the same time, there's only 2 commercial airlines operating in Australia. There's no blending mandate at the moment. So the demand pool domestically is somewhat limited compared to the supply potential. And so I think that we are likely to see Australia pursuing trade corridors with some of those demand centers in Asia. And we already have strong trading relationships with the likes of Japan and Korea. New Zealand as well would be one route that would be quite a logical starting point potentially from an Australia perspective. So yeah, I think in general, though, if you're taking a principles-based approach, it's essentially connecting large potential supply centers where the domestic demand is limited with those countries that have large aviation markets and limited land mass. And ideally, if you can get some political and trade alignment to springboard off, then that's even better.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Mitch, for your comment. And if anyone, by the way, want to react, please do so. Otherwise, let's continue. And thanks for these very valid comments. So if we now look a bit more about the market credibility, transparency aspect of the SAF corridors. So yeah, we understand that building a SAF corridor as well depends on trust. So transparency, certification, and verification are essential, especially for buyers, an investor to participate confidently in this cross-border SAF transaction. So maybe Mitch, again to you, could you give us your finance and investment perspective, and potentially how can financial institutions can help standardize SAF credit verification or ensure trade insurance? If you can enlighten us on the finance side of it, please.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I think you probably
I'm sure you will.
you probably hit on the right metrics there in terms of, I think, transparency, which really relates to sustainability and traceability of the SAF, and environmental claims and accounting, which I think goes to what incentives do people really have to invest and to procure SAF. And so from the transparency perspective, it's really about having some consistency and harmonization of sustainability frameworks that are adopted in different markets, and clarity on what is accepted as certified SAF in different markets, and ideally that's consistent across the region. And so we are starting to see those international frameworks like RSB and ISCC being more standardized within domestic frameworks, which is great, and that's really important, just to provide that alignment on feedstock claims, emissions reductions, and carbon intensity, etc. And in terms of enabling tradability of SAF across markets, having registries in place that are consistently applied in different markets is really important, and the accounting mechanisms and the role of book and claim models potentially within that context is also critical in our view. So I think that goes to the point around incentives and why would people invest in SAF, and from both an airline perspective and a corporate airline user whose travel emissions go to their scope 3 footprint, they need to have confidence and clarity that they can make claims relating to the SAF that they purchase, that whether that be physical or certificates through a book and claim model. And at the moment, that isn't really enabled in a lot of markets in APAC. And just as an example, Pollination did some work with Boeing and Virgin Australia, looking at Virgin's domestic emissions obligations under our compliance framework in Australia. And essentially at the moment, they cannot purchase SAF certificates in another market and claim that towards their domestic compliance obligations, because our reporting framework in Australia doesn't have a book and claim approach built in. And so that really takes away the incentive for them to buy SAF certificates in another market and help, in turn, help a project get de-risked and access finance, because the environmental claims they can make are limited by our national reporting regime. So as I was saying before, I think alignment of the accounting mechanisms in different markets it's not potentially the most interesting topic to some people, but it's actually really critical in enabling the market to develop and providing the right incentives to airlines and corporate customers as well.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And as well, we understand that book and claim has certain level of validation, depending if you are in European Union, outside EU, CORSIA versus EU, ICAO. So yeah, not easy. But one of the things which maybe to echo to what Ishan was mentioning about the problem of infrastructure, and we can touch base on it later, is that one of the main goals is as well to make sure that potentially you can buy and claim SAF benefit without the physical delivery when airports are not ready, when infrastructure is not there. But thank you, Mitch. Really appreciate your feedback. And on the same topic, maybe David, may I ask you on the digital system standpoint, what do you think, or how come the regional MRV platform or digital registry, so we talk about book and claims certificates, can enhance the transparency and trust in these transactions? So if you can share with us your perspective.
Okay. Thank you, Arnold. It's a good question. That's how to keep our carbon credit, or how to keep ourselves can track. And in other words, is in terms of the transparency. Also, you mentioned that book a claim that will prevent this happens. Now, another side that I also think that digital tools, Black Cam, how to deploy, how to carry on it, and by each companies or airlines or central government to issue. I think it's important because you know that the book claim is real good and will prevent illegal division and double counting of such as the UCO. That's important, but how can we use it in Asia Pacific region? That's important. Also, maybe also that way come back our previous questions. I mentioned that needs our different countries, our collaboration. No matter this needs collective action, not just each country to take actions. That is our group action. So I think that's for example, they also need that our oil supplier for the recognition of this book and claim, because you know that's just Mitch said that's logistics and infrastructure. You know that's the stuff in airport that it belong to our supplier, such as I know that in China it belong to China oil, the aviation oil supply company. They have powerful in the SAF production usage. So we should use a powerful policy such as issued by the central government or the Civil Aviation Association and other NGOs efforts to encourage them to do that. And this is my thinking. Okay.
Thank you, David. No, I really appreciate we all know that sometimes China market is always a bit special and really always like to develop their own standards. Hopefully, they will not develop their own book and claim for sake of interoperability purpose, but we'll see what will happen in the future. Let's move on and maybe let's talk a bit more on the infrastructure side of of the corridor. So, and yeah, infrastructure is where it makes everything possible. So we talk about shares logistics, joint venture, green financing mechanism, which are usually key turning project into real scalable supply chain. So Isham, based on your your experience, your company, so may I ask you what physical or financial infrastructure do you see as essential to position APAC as SAF export base? And if maybe in your answer you can share some example about JGC strategy, maybe across Japan and Southeast Asia, please.
Thank you very much. It's a long question, so please give me time to answer.
we still have 30 minutes, but please keep some time for yourself.
Thank you. It's a great question, actually. When we talk about the physical infrastructure, we need to understand that when we talk about the co-processing, it's not like you are putting 50% of the UCO with the 50% of the crude. The amount of the UCO that can be co-processed with the crude is very limited, right? That's one of the physical infrastructure of the HEFA process. And otherwise, you can go to the 100% green fuel and make a neat SAF, right? But if you want to have a lower capex, that is a physical infrastructure challenge. The second challenge, according to our experience, is the UCO handling is largely a manual process, right? And then when it's a manual process, it's delivered to the on-site, and the refineries which are already built, they have the plot restrictions, but you need some of the area to store UCO somewhere. So that is another infrastructure challenge or the plot restrictions what we have faced. And the third one is the UCO is limited, right? But can it be increased with the supply chain development? Yes, but it cannot happen overnight. So what we are doing here in Japan is we are conducting the educational activities in the schools and the community activities on the sustainable UCO disposal. So that's how if the people will know why this UCO needs to be properly disposed, then they will come back and with the new ideas on how it can be done properly. So these kind of the activities we are doing here, right? And so this is the physical infrastructure. So regarding the financial side, right? So let's look in this way. So the feedstock supplier wants to sell the product to the operator at higher cost, and the operator wants to sell their SAF to the airline company at a higher cost, right? So it means the project viability will be disturbed, right? So why not come together in a one project structure? So where the feedstock supplier, operator, and the airline company will be a one project company for the development of the SAF project. So this kind of example, what we have learned from the ammonia project, for example, JERA invested in the blue ammonia project with the CF Industries in Louisiana. So they are not only the investor, but also the off-taker. So it means the project viability is increased in this kind of a structure. So when we talk to the airline companies in the past 2 years, right? No one was saying, "Oh, we will not invest. We will not invest." That was the kind of the reaction. But recently, we have seen a drastic shift is happening. Japan Airlines recently invested in one of the bioethanol project in Japan, and which may be, of course, coming to the alcohol to jet in the future. And also recently, a couple of days back, Cathay Pacific and Airbus, they have made a co-wallet for the investment in the SAF project. So if this kind of a structure, financial structure could be formed where everyone comes together, right? I think this is gonna increase the SAF the production in the Asia Pacific region and across the globe. Yeah. Thank you.
So you mean that will be a kind of alignment, to make economically viable the end product and avoiding margin accumulations to arrive to a crazy point that nobody will be able to buy it?
Well, economic viability, well, it will be expensive for sure, but the project development will happen for sure because the off-taker is there in the project structure, right? And of
Okay.
course, in this project structure, the cost can be reduced a bit, but cannot reach to the traditional SAF, right?
Okay.
But interesting
Thanks.
project structure. Yeah, that's our
I
perspective.
think we need more than 1 hour to go into details, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you.
But thanks a lot, Ishan. And Mitch, maybe to stay on the financial team, so and to echo what Ishan just said, what kind of other innovative financing mechanism or transition fund or maybe even SAF bonds or whatever would help to de-risk the early SAF developers and to attract more capital into this space?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think obviously at the moment, one of the challenges is that project developers are kind of wearing all of the early stage risk of getting these projects off the ground. I would say that we're not really seeing traditional sort of private finances really step into this space with a lot of risk appetite and willingness to innovate. So from my perspective, I think there's probably a couple of examples of how the government can develop financing mechanisms through policy in a way that supports projects to de-risk and progress faster. And that would be, for example, through like the UK is developing a revenue certainty mechanism through which projects would get a guaranteed strike price and have a contract with the government in order to ensure that they have certainty of revenue going forward, which is something that a lot of projects struggle with because airlines are quite reluctant to sign up to long-term offtake agreements for SAF with project developers. So revenue certainty mechanisms, I think, can be really impactful and be interesting to see how the UK mechanism, what impact that has. The other thing that we're seeing a lot is airlines and OEMs kind of stepping into the space of investing in SAF projects and technologies through collaborative funds. So there's quite a few examples of that. Qantas and Airbus have a sizable climate innovation fund in Australia. The One World Alliance, I'm sure people saw recently, announced a partnership with Breakthrough Energy Ventures. So a number of airlines contributing to, I think it was $150 million fund to invest in SAF projects and technologies. So yeah, I think in the absence of kind of private finance strongly coming to the ball game, airlines and OEMs are stepping into this space more because, particularly for airlines, they know they're going to need large volumes to access at an affordable price, so they have an interest in helping the market develop. One other mechanism that I think could be quite interesting, which a lot of the European airlines have been calling for, is sort of a double-sided auction mechanism with a government intermediary. So that's been trialed with hydrogen through the H2 Global framework in Europe, where essentially the government will play that role of signing up to a 10 or 15-year offtake from a project and take that risk that airlines aren't willing to take, and then auction the SAF off under that offtake to buyers, so that the government can kind of procure at volume over long periods. And airlines or whatever commodity it is that's subject to that mechanism, that the buyer can access it through the government intermediary. So that's something that is being called for by a lot of airlines in Europe. I think it's probably would take more time to set up the architecture for that in Asia. But yeah, I think in general, at the moment, it's either sort of governments playing this role of helping develop innovative de-risking and financing mechanisms, or some of the airlines are establishing funds and looking to invest in projects to secure their own supply.
Right. And Mitch, if I may add just maybe one comment or maybe another question, but because you mentioned about those different stakeholders, but I think recently, last year, if I'm not wrong, you have some financial institutions such as IFC World Bank, together with ADB, the Asian Development Bank, where investing in Pakistan for around $100 million plus refineries. So do you see those I would say bodies or those financial institutions having a more active roles, maybe through climate fund or some
Yeah.
vehicle?
Yeah, no, I think those sort of more development finance institutions could definitely play a role, and I think blended finance has an important role to play in the SAF market. So to the extent you can get co-funding between governments and DFIs and other strategic investors in those kinds of projects, then I think that should be part of their mandate, and it's good to see some of the examples that you mentioned starting to do so. So certainly in Asia, I think those types of development finance providers can definitely play a role in the space.
Super. Thank you. Thank you, Mitch. So let's move on and let's talk a bit about global policies, and Takehiro, we really need your insight on it. Because we've seen, Refuel EU, UK SAF mandate, we heard about as well the US tax incentives, which aim at creating a strong signal for investment and adoption. So, I mean, question to everybody, but Takehiro, please take times because you haven't spoke for a while, and we really want to hear your perspective on it. But what do you think about Asia Pacific to align or to adapt this model? Do you think that we can translate those kind of global policies into actions for Asia Pacific, or what's your view on this on the policy side? You're in mute, Takehiro.
So, sorry, is that me or
Yeah.
David? Oh, okay.
Yeah. We'd like you to start with, and because and after we can give the floor to everyone. But you start first, please. Floor is yours.
Sure. Yep. Okay. So I think there are certainly lessons from these two big markets. The US, let's say the combination of mostly financial incentives, so which is carrot side of policies, and then the EU and UK, I think it's more mandate type of policies. I think we have seen the clear effects of these policies in terms of the demand simulations of SAF. So we are actually tracking the offtake agreements between the SAF suppliers and airlines, and also the SAF consumption by major airlines based on the reportings of more than of 40 airlines in the world. And if you look at the SAF consumption, it's very clear that the European airlines and also some major American airlines, US-based airlines, are leading in terms of the usage of SAF. Actually, out of the SAF consumption in 2024, about 2/3 of the SAF consumed were by Europe-based airlines, which we can see that, of course, the main driver is Refuel EU Aviation and also the UK SAF mandate. At the same time, there are corporate customers' interest to use SAF to reduce Scope 3 emissions. We can learn lessons from that. But then I wouldn't say we can copy those models directly to all the APEC regions. In my opinion, the mandate is important, but I think it needs to be combined with the financial incentives to fill the price gap. Because, as already discussed, the non-Nova airlines just want to bear the cost burdens. And then, according to the price survey of SAF this year, the Fairfast SAF average price was $5.4 per gallon. So, combination of those policies are important. And then finally, I think the one thing that maybe we should be careful about when we talk about transferring policies from, let's say, Europe to Asia is that whether we should have a mandate for eSAF or not. I don't think any Asian governments are considering, at least on the face front. I don't think any Asian government are actually considering to implement eSAF mandates, at least in the short term. Just for people who are not familiar, the EU will start sub-mandate for eSAF. The UK will start eSAF from 2028. But then the eSAF cost is 8 to 10 times more expensive than the average fossil-based jet fuel. And then we recently modeled the cost calculation of eSAF. Actually, it increased over the last 2 years. The reason is our recent result of the hydrogen cost, green hydrogen cost, has increased. That reflected the higher cost of eSAF. But then, so I think in terms of economics, it's really difficult to make that sense. On the other hand, so what about how do we address the feedstock challenge? Right now, the most of SAF is HEFA SAF, which uses animal fats or use cooking oil. We know that we're gonna face a feedstock challenge, but maybe, in my opinion, the government should stimulate commercialization of other non-HEFA technologies like alcohol to jet rather than eSAF. That's my opinion.
Okay. Thank you, Takehiro. I don't know if anyone want to comment. Maybe Mitch, you wanted to bring the UK government approach or perspective about the policies eventually.
Yeah, I think it was just we hosted an event very recently with the British High Commission on kind of learnings from the UK SAF policy settings and approach, and I think the strong, consistent feedback from industry players who'd been involved in the UK market was that through both the policy design and the policy implementation process, the level of consultation the government undertook with industry was really, really strong. And there were, structures and frameworks in place beyond just kind of putting out a consultation paper on a policy mechanism, but really, integrating the UK's Jet Zero Council into that process, having specific task forces to work on particular issues within the policy design process. And that was obviously really appreciated from industry, and I think is likely, one of the factors that contributed to those policies so far, being quite effective and well received. So I think it's maybe an obvious point that that the deep consultation with industry on the intricacies of policy design is important, but it's not always done well in practice. And it seems that the UK government did a fairly good job in that regard. So that's something I think other governments should look to adopt as well.
Thanks a lot for your comments. David, I would like to ask you the same question, if you believe that APAC could align or adapt those models, but as well, maybe a second sub-question based on what Takehiro has mentioned about eSAF, because to my perspective, the production of green hydrogen is really one of the big focus from China, unless I'm wrong. Maybe it's something you can tell us a bit more eventually about the eSAF story. But first, on the policy side, David, what's your take on the APAC and potentially the adaptation of this model or not?
Okay. Regarding the policy, it's my research field. Thank you. I think that's an Asia Pacific country that we should learn from the EU and the United States. As you mentioned, that's the EU and the United States adopt different policies. For example, EU has issued Fit for 55 and Refuel EU. In other words, it's a mandate blended rate for airline. I should achieve this goal. For example, 2% up to 2027. Maybe it's correct. For the United States, they have issued ERA and adopt the carbon credit to encourage the SAF production. The other was please for the EU ask the airlines and the production and the factory owners to invest here. Because we are allies, must use the SAF as much as possible. But for the United States, they will tell the world that please invest here because we encourage that we have the bonus for the SAF production. So I think for our Asia Pacific Ocean region, we should learn. We can create a policy matrix. For example, we can show this the carrot and we need carrot. Also need the break. That's the policy incentive policy. For example, we have just said that we need ADB and other financial institute and the countries provide the subsidy or policy support. As for the voluntary markets, for example, we can adopt the book and claim. That's the way comply the voluntary and the mandate policy together. That's way I think that's a good tools to encourage the airlines and or Asia Pacific countries to focus on the SAF production. It's a good news that just last week China has issued a certification for the 6th SAF production certification. That in other words, China has a plan of the SAF production. Also can make contribution to the SAF trade corridors. For example, from the Shanghai transport use our as a ship corridor, ship hub to transport to the other countries for Singapore, Malaysia, and other Japan. I think there's a good opportunity to all over the world. Yeah. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you for your comments. And to close on this topic, do you, Isham, get any additional say on the policy side? And after we'll move into some Q&A online. We can see a couple of questions there.
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm not so strong on the policy side, but what I believe that when I was reading the report on the Singapore levy, then what is the amount of the levy on the ticket? It's basically very less, very small, right? So I believe that's one of the way to do it. I believe the carrot approach may not really work when we want to drastically increase the SAF production. And secondly, when I talk to some of the players in India, the airlines are saying that the 1% or maximum 2% they can easily accommodate. They can easily accommodate the blending. So why that cannot be the mandate? So I believe it can be a mandate approach. Well, yes. But the cost levy to be devised accordingly, according to the country, right? And secondly, I totally agree with Takehiro-san that he said that we need to move to a different pathway, like from the HEFA to alcohol to jet. And then I want to go one step further. Like we also need to look for the gasification and the FT side of the approach. So when we look at the Asia Pacific region, there's a lot of the waste. There's a lot of the MSW. There is a kind of the mandate, right? Then, of course, there are technological challenges, but that also need to be overcome. If there's a kind of the mandate on to reduce the MSW, and one of the way is the SAF production from the MSW, right? So I think such kind of the policies may be considered, and of course, like if we consider the cost, like is HEFA, then alcohol to jet, gasification, and then power to liquid. So we are not going to power to liquid, but we are just focusing on the first three pathways. Yeah, that's my take on it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Isham. So it's a pity because you are opening up a big topic about who should pay for the premium of SAF. Only 5 minutes left because anyway, and for information, I was just back from China 9th LCC summit in Wuhan last week. I can tell you LCCs are not that keen even for a few dollars. You know, it still represents something important, especially in Asia when 60% of the available seats are from LCCs. But that's maybe Another
It's only for the
panel.
international flights. Only for the international flights.
For international.
It's only for the
Okay.
international. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. I can see few questions because we have 5 minutes left. Alors, there is a question from Joseph Maceda, affordability, question marks. I don't know what the question, maybe you can skip this one unless, Joseph, you want to reformulate, it would be very helpful. Somebody is asking, with some technology scaling with smaller initial projects, is there a minimum production scale that this needs to achieve to access export trade logistic if domestic demand is not there? I don't know if anyone want to an answer to this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I probably won't answer the question directly, because I think it would depend on the project and the market that it's operating in. Maybe the other panelists have views, but on the scaling point, and smaller projects, I think I was speaking to someone recently and they said, it's great to see all this momentum in the SAF market, but one of the things that concerns them is they're going to these conferences and seeing a lot of the same kinds of slide decks and hearing the same conversations that were happening in the hydrogen market 2 years ago. And obviously that market is now, facing a lot of headwinds. And I think one of the reasons for that is that a lot of developers came out and said, we're going to build these huge multi-gigawatt projects. It's going to be the biggest green hydrogen project in the world. And they all got stuck in feasibility because they're waiting for electrolyzer costs to come down. Electrolyzer producers need demonstration scale projects to deploy their technologies and get learnings and efficiencies to be able to execute cost reductions. And so I think that sort of tendency towards scale has been a bit detrimental in some ways for the hydrogen market. And so applying that to the SAF market, I think to the extent that developers maybe take a different approach to more modular technologies or deploying smaller projects in kind of hub and spoke models, then that's probably a faster path to getting the technology cost reductions through these demonstration scale projects that then enable you to scale up to bigger and bigger projects over time. So just an observation and maybe also relevant to the next question to some extent around kind of earlier stage technologies.
Thank you, Mitch. No, definitely. I don't know if in really 1 minute anyone want to take the question about the energy SAF fund with IAG and how to find a way to invest into lower TRL level before we move into the conclusion. So if not, maybe we can take that offline and sorry for being a bit short in times. So guys, we are really at the limit. So if we can really have a really 30 seconds, a takeaway or what could be your last words. On my side, it's clear that, Asia Pacific is not just following. We talk about policy, we talk about production, we talk about book and claim, but we are really not following the SAF story. We are writing our own, but really a quick roundtable, starting with you, Takehiro. What's your last words to close the session today?
Sure. I think the policies already discussed a lot, but I think the next step we really need to move towards alcohol-to-jet beyond HEFA, especially beyond 2030. And then there's plenty of feedstock in Asia and also the Latin America.
Thank you. Mitch, what's your feedback?
I would just say I think the trade corridor concept is very powerful in SAF, and we should look at opportunities to really unlock that between countries where it makes the most sense.
Brilliant. So David, floor is yours for your 15-20 seconds before the cut of the time.
Establishment of SAF trade corridor in Asia Pacific is very important. Let's work together to push forward it.
Brilliant, and absolutely. So Ishan, to conclude on your side.
From my side, I would like to say that if you're planning any SAF project, please contact me and JDC Corporation. We will help you out. Thank you very much.
I think the message is loud and clear. So big thanks to you guys, Ishan, Takehiro, Mitch, and Chang, and for all of you joining us. And yeah, let's keep building this corridor together on partnerships, our certificate, sustainability flight at all time, of course. I think we are done. Harry, handing over to you.
Thank you
We
very
are right on
much.
time.
Absolutely right on time. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for your perspective during the session. I think a really insightful session. A reminder to please do try to join us in Singapore next month. Yeah, thank you once again. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you very much.